Greetings, people of YouTube. This is MKN Forever, Tony once again. And I know I haven't been on YouTube lately, but it's because I've been very busy. But I wanted to make this review of a movie that I saw. I rewatched this Saturday, and it's a movie that it belongs to one of my favorite genres, which is post-apocalyptic genre. And okay, granted, this movie at first I wasn't much for it, but then I saw movies like Book of Eli and these really post-apocalyptic trash movies. Book of Eli, granted, had its tiny little moments, but it's not enough to save the film. And anyway, this movie, it's 1989 martial arts post-apocalyptic movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I think Matt enjoys this movie. I could be wrong. Well, anyway, the movie I'm talking about is the classic Cyborg, directed by Albert Pyun, and starring, like I said earlier, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And and this movie, Cyborg. What can I say about this movie? It's a solid movie, and I will say this: it is a template. I consider this movie a template for post-apocalyptic movies. You know, this kind of like the Bible, the post-apocalyptic Bible. This and Fallout. You know, the video game series Fallout. If you haven't seen it, please look it up because it's a good video game series. And as it's a little, people have made fan films about it, fan series here on YouTube, so you can feel free to look those up. And but anyway, this movie Cyborg, most people know about Cyborg, but for those who don't know, I'm gonna read you the plot summary here on IMDb. Hold on, let me look it up. Okay, here it is. Okay, the storyline is: Gibson Rickenbacker, Jean-Claude Van Damme, is a hired fighter living in a plague-ravaged apocalyptic America, where a plague has infested most of the United States and the rest of the world. In New York City, Gibson encounters a woman named Pearl Prophet. Pearl Prophet is played by Dale Hannon, I think is her name. Because I gotta be honest with you, I don't know much of the people that are in here. But anyway, continuing. Pearl reveals to Gibson that she is a cyborg who is carrying vital information for a group of scientists in Atlanta who are working on a cure to the plague. And Pearl hires Gibson to escort her back to Atlanta. But Pearl is kidnapped by pirates, a murderous gang led by Fender Tremolo, played by the one and only Vincent Klein. Now, we've seen Vincent Klein in a couple stuff. He's mostly worked with Albert Pyun. Plus, he did Point Break. He had a small part in Point Break. You know, that movie with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. But he does a good job as a villain. Anyway, continuing. Murderous gang led by Fender Tremolo, who wants the cure for themselves, and they decide to take Pearl to Atlanta themselves. Gibson, joined by a young woman named Natty Simmons, played by Deborah Richer. Again, I don't know what else she went on to do. Deborah Richer, who plays Natty Simmons, goes in pursuit of Fender and his gang, as Gibson sets out to rescue, stop Fender and his gang from reaching Atlanta and defeat Fender, who slaughtered Gibson's family. Now, that's basically the plot summary there. It's kind of like, I guess you could say, Gibson, Jean-Claude Van Damme's character in this movie. He's kind of like a bounty hunter, I guess you could say, because he's a martial artist as well. And basically, this movie visually is very. I really enjoy how this movie looks visually. It's very solid, and what can I? And it's the video that there's a bunch of. I remember I did a tribute to this movie when, but back then I wasn't too crazy about the film. I kind of did it in a request for Efrey back when he was on YouTube, and he did a. He asked me to do some tributes to it, and he did I did a tribute with what was that song? It's All Over by 3 Days Grace, which I felt it was a good tribute, and I thought it was pretty good. Might remake that tribute one day because I lost it in my old account, and it's this movie Cyborg. Well, it's basically the movie starts out. We are introduced to we hear a voiceover by Fender, aka Vincent Klein, who is talking about kind of like how can I say this? It's kind of a strange way he says it. Kind of like I like the anarchy. I love the bad, or something like that. It's so really crazy. And by the way, in this one, Vincent Klein has some freaking scary eyes. So it's weird. And him going up against Jean-Claude Van Damme, the end fight scene, it's just, solid. This movie does have some holes, I will admit. It has some holes. Why? Personally, I feel like it could use a little dialogue. But and I don't mean like replace action for dialogue. I mean, I would like to see Gibson say some words, because he's very silent. He's not like dead silent, like he never speaks throughout the movie, but because he does speak throughout the movie. But I don't know. I just wish there was a little more dialogue coming from him. I'm not saying replace action scenes with dialogue because that would be boring, but I'm saying. I would just like to hear, Gibson have a little more, was a little more animated. But, there's a scene where they're at, I guess, this abandoned building. The action, top notch, perfect. And Jean-Claude Van Damme's character Gibson, he's got this gun, and they kind of jump on, what was her name, Natty. These pirates, they kind of go attack Natty, and he comes out of nowhere with this really strange looking gun. Which, by the way, I found out that gun, what they actually used on set, was a paintball gun, which is kind of cool. And because Albert Pyun knows how to make an independent, low budget movie, because that's what you do. Instead of using real guns, you use airsoft or paintball guns. And hopefully I can get my hands on some so I can make my own kind of movies. And anyway, he comes out with the gun, he shoots a couple of them, but then a pirate actually manages to knock the gun out of his hand, and Gibson has this really cool switchblade in his shoe, which is really cool. He kind of takes it out and kind of kicks the guy in the neck with it, which is kind of cool. And then he has a badass fight scene with the rest of the pirates. So the fight scenes, top notch. A story, very good. The dialogue, I felt it could have been a little bit more to it, but it is what it is, and I'm not going to judge it for it. But this movie should be considered considered a template for post-apocalyptic movies today, because okay, you got some good ones in the bunch nowadays. Okay, you got okay, I know some people don't care for this one, but T4. Okay, I don't hate T4. I feel I can watch it. I can sit through it. But personally, and Cyborg's a little better, in my opinion. And Cyborg's much better, in fact. But okay, T4, Book of Eli, I don't really care for that one because I just visually was just a rip off of T4. And what else? There's this other movie I want to check out called what was it? The Road. That's right. I think Viggo Mortensen, I believe, and it's kind of a weird movie, but it's post-apocalyptic, so I'm willing to check it out. And because it's one of my favorite genres, post-apocalyptic movies. Why? Because you can kind of use it to. Because when it comes to post-apocalyptic, you can make your own mythology. You can make your own rules. There's not one way to do it. But but most of the best post-apocalyptic movies are right here on YouTube. And they're not really movies, they're like short films. Because there's this one guy who's called, what's his name on here on YouTube, called Punisher. Because it's with a W instead of a U. It's a PW Nisher. So it's Punisher. That's what he was going for. And he's done his little short films here and there. He did a film called Stalker. And I think his real name is Clinton Jones. It's like, look it up. Look up short film Stalker, and then look up short film. What was it? Short film Fallout short fan film. And of course there's these other guys, that I love. Some people might say they're the indie mogul guys, but no, they're technically they're the Waste Side Creation guys, because they got this series based on the video game Fallout. It called Fallout Nuka Break. First, it started with a short film, but then eventually it turned into a mini series, like a little web series. And it's good for a web series, right now, I think they're up to their 6th episode. I don't know how many episodes it's gonna take. Is it better than the Mortal Kombat Legacy web series? Yes, I will be bold enough to say yes, because just look at these films and you go, wow, people can really make their own post-apocalyptic movies, because they're so easy to make, and but anyway, going off topic here, going into something else. But as it comes to Cyborg at the end of the day is a very solid movie, worth your time. I will admit I was harsh on it back in the day. I was a little harsh on it, but seeing how some movies are today, it just makes me miss this kind of. I wanted to revisit this kind of movie, kind of like back in the day movie, because this is actually a really good post-apocalyptic movie. Some people might argue that Waterworld is better. Okay, granted, but okay, fair enough. But the thing about Waterworld is that I never put it in the post-apocalyptic genre. Why? Because granted, it does have that theme, but I never put it there because it takes place in the water. That kind of makes it its own animal, in my opinion. I still like Waterworld, but I don't compare it to Cyborg. So Waterworld, that's another movie I gotta review someday. So anyway, Cyborg is at the end of the day a solid movie. It delivers. It doesn't promise anything that it can't deliver. It's a very solid movie. So if I have to rate this film, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. Because part of me wishes there could have been a little more dialogue, so that's why I have to give it the 9.5. But at the end of the day, solid freaking movie. Definitely check out Cyborg. So anyway, thank you all for watching, and gonna wrap up this video. This is MKM Forever. Tony, sign off. Later.